first is that if you don't understand the fundamentals very well, it will be difficult for you to even know how to utilize AI tools to power the research. So in this first section, we are going to be looking at the fundamentals of research in the modern era. And one of the things you need to understand before we start, what is research? And to a physician, to a chemist, to a pharmacist, they can be different definitions, but by the time you look at the core concept of research, you are going to know that research is almost the same thing. So let's look at it. Research is a structured process of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data to understand a natural phenomenon. So when we are doing research, our major goal is to collect data. So we collect data, we analyze the data, then we interpret the data to be able to understand a natural phenomenon. That's the first thing. And please, you need to understand this foundation very well, because by the time we get to a lot of amazing AI tools that we are going to be using in this session, you are going to see that the basics is more important. In fact, the people that understand the basics, it's very easy for them to begin to use AI to do analytical research. So we want to move beyond, and one other thing you need to understand is that research moves beyond just summarizing existing facts to generating new insight or practical solution. What does that mean? It means that research is not just about we talking about the existing fact. We want to move beyond what exists in the past to what is possible in the future. You know, there was a time in the history of the world that we are using internet, when the internet revolution started. And as of today, we are moving to we are already in AI revolution. From AI, we are moving to agentic model. What are we saying? It means that there is progressiveness in knowledge. And please know that in African context, research is very fundamental for us to solve our localized developmental challenge. Now, why research matters for Africa? I think we need to establish that foundation very well for us. Number one is that we have varieties of problems in Africa to which we need to use research. I mean empirical research. We have to look at existing data and see the new insight we can derive from those data. So from edtech to technology to climate and agriculture, these are areas in which we can use research. And in the comment section, you can also type area where you feel that research will be applicable. I'll be so glad to see your comments, and I will be glad to respond to those comments. Then we need to ask ourselves, what is the characteristic of an excellent research? And I think that is very important to have the science of an excellent research, such that by the time you begin to use AI, don't forget AI is not a replacement for natural intelligence. Rather, what it does is that it complements or it enhances it. So what are the characteristics of a natural an excellent research? Number one is systematic. Please understand that every research must rely on a defined methodology. That means if I'm doing research, my methodology, what does that mean? It means the method by which I conduct a particular research must not be vague. And it must follow a rigorous and logical sequence of steps. And that is very important under the characteristic of an excellent research. The second thing we need to understand is that every research must be objective. Please pay attention here. When we are talking about an objective research, we mean a research that does not reflect personal biases. That means when you are doing research, as much as possible, if it's an academic research, you must ensure that it does not reflect your personal biases. Rather, every research should reflect conclusion gotten from analyzing an empirical data. Now, one of the things we also notice is that every research must be verifiable. What does that mean? It means that the methodology must be transparent enough such that other researchers in every part of the world can look at the research that you have done and they can reproduce that research by following your methodology. So they can replicate the study, they can also verify the results. And this is very exciting Because you need to understand that you are not the only one doing research. Everybody across the world are doing research, and there are a lot of people that might be working in the specific space that you are working. So you want to ensure that your methodology is verifiable. And the last but not the least is that under the characteristic of an excellent research is that an excellent research must be purposeful. That means it must begin with a clearly defined problem. And let me tell you, I've been an AI engineer for a couple of years. And one of the things I've noticed is that in the usage of AI, especially for deep work like research, like enterprise commerce and all those kind of things, you must start with a clearly defined problem. And one of the things I'm going to be showing you in the course of this lecture is how do we craft an excellent prompt? Because you need to understand that the quality that your AI, the quality of the outcome of your AI depends on the quality of your prompt. So every research must be purposeful, and your research must address a distinct gap. What does that imply? It means when you are doing research, your research must address a gap. That's why if you are presenting your paper, one of the first questions they are going to ask you is, what is your research gap? So every research must address a gap. Why are we saying a gap? Because what people have done in time past, they have also closed a gap. You are closing a gap. That's why we say research is continuous. Then let's go to the second session, is what we call research methodology foundation. And what are we going to say? Are we saying under this? Please note that research is both a science and an art. Of course, there's science to it. There is also a philosophical perspective to research. And that is what we are going to be considering under this. Well, what is the psychology of research? And I'm going to be breaking it down for you guys so that you can understand what we are talking about. Now, there are two parts to research. We have ontological. And whenever you say the word ontological in philosophy, what it implies is reality. So, a research, you are addressing a given reality, the gaps that exist in a given reality. So there are two parts to the philosophy of research. We have ontological, and under ontological, he answered this question: what is reality? You know, the Greek philosopher Parmenides said something a couple of thousands of years ago. He said, what is? And the question that philosophy Parmenides was trying to address is reality. So, the philosophy of research, we have ontological, what is reality? And the second part of the philosophy of research is epistemology. Now, when we are talking about epistemology, what we are saying is that, how do we know what we know? And you see, it's very important. Assuming that you are working for an e-commerce company and you want to scale your business, you have to collect data from your customer. By the time you collect data from vast amount of customer, you begin to analyze the data. Then you now begin to interpret the data. And that aspect under philosophy of research appears under epistemology. Now, let's go further. Of course, there are different types of methodology. And let me explain something. We have qualitative, we have quantitative, and we have mixed method. Please understand, when we are talking about quantitative, we are trying to use mathematical model to be able to illustrate your research. For example, let's assume that you're working on a concept, let's say in petroleum engineering, simulation of CO2 dissolution in porous medium using volume of fluid method. The first question you need to ask yourself is, what specific method will be more suitable for my research? And this is very important before we move into how to use because a lot of people nowadays just use a lot of AI without understanding this foundation. And that's why we are trying to set this foundation for you so that when we move to the practical part, you can be able to decipher very well. You need to have this plan. What is my method? Do you want to go with a quantitative, or you want to go with a qualitative, a descriptive model, or you want to go with a mixed method. There are scenarios in research in which quantitative does not really work and qualitative will not really do the work. Under that condition, we use what we call mixed method. Now, I'm currently in the third section where I will be talking about problem identification and question development. And please note that the foundation of all meaningful research begins with a well-articulated problem. And in research, there are two things. Your problem identification. How do you identify your research problem? It's a very important question. And the second thing is that how do you develop your question? Because there is something called research questions. Problem identification, research question. These are background work that you have to do. Then by the time you start using a lot of energetic AI, of course, AI tools also help you to do your problem identification because he has access to a lot of data sets. Ask yourself this question: what is my problem? What specific problem is my research solving? And the second is, what is the research question? Because from the research question, we are going to decipher something called the research hypothesis. And please note that hypothesis is a natural description or explanation of a phenomenon. What are my hypotheses? Now, please understand that we have a golden rule in research that a problem that is well stated is a problem that is half solved. If you can have a clearly defined problem, it's going to mean that you have a problem that is half solved. Now, let's go to this aspect. Where do research problems come from? And I believe this is the question in the heart of people that are watching this class. How do research problems, where do research problems come from? Please understand, why do you think we do literature review? Why do you think we do literature review? The primary reason why we do literature review is to be able to identify gaps. Now we have what we call contradictory findings. We have outdated study. We have unexpected variable in academic journal. So by the time you look at past research, you can be able to identify gaps. In fact, as we begin to move to the practical section, we can get a research paper and we can identify the gaps in those research. So by the time we identify the gaps in those research, you can be able to generate your research problem from those research. The second one is industrial. Assuming that you are working in an industry, let's say you're working in an e-commerce industry, or you are working, let's say, in a pharmaceutical industry or in energy industry. As you interact with your work, you might notice some real-world inefficiency. Or what, for example, you can also ask yourself this question: we are in the age of AI. How does AI disrupt my work? These are places where you can get your research problem for. You can be able to formulate it there. We have what we call educational inequality. For example, healthcare access barrier. In fact, by the time you look at Africa, one of the things you are going to notice is that we have thousands and thousands and thousands of problems that we can generate our research problems from. And one of the things, the fourth one, method of generating your research problem, is that we have some contradictory academic maxims or academic facts that need verification. For example, let's use diversity problem in physics. You know, a lot of people have worked on different models. We have 3D dimension, we have 2D, we have 4D. And maybe you want to try to simulate your own to be able to model the transport of an entire city using diversity problem. So the next question we need to ask ourselves: where do research problems come from? The first thing is that ask yourself these questions. If you're an undergraduate or postgraduate, the chapter 2 of your research is usually literature review. Why do you do literature review? One of the primary purpose of literature review is not to know the existing research work that has been done before. One of the major focus of literature review is to be able to identify research gaps, number one, and also research limitation. Because by the time you identify the gaps and you identify the gaps and the limitation, you can be able to formulate your research problems from that gaps. Now, you assuming that you're working in a pharmaceutical company or in oil and gas or in medical space and all those kind of things, as you interact with your patient or as you interact with your clients, with your customer, there are some problems you begin to identify. You can also coin your research problems from that. In fact, the third one is educational inadequacy. Educational inadequacy, healthcare access. In fact, there are thousands and thousands of problems in Africa that need research. You can look into your environment and you can coin research problem. And the last but not the least is also something we call conflicting academic discourse. Let's assume that Albert Einstein, okay, let's use a typical example. Albert Einstein was the one that discovered the relativity theorem. Then Isaac Newton discovered something around Newton's law. One is classical, one is quantum physics. So from this distinction, you can be able to carve out your research problem such that it brings together both the classical physics and the quantum physics together. There are multiple ways of getting problem. You see, as somebody that is interested in research, you must be able to look into your environment and observe your environment critically such that you can be able to deduce the problem. And of course, in the later section of this lecture, you are going to see how we use AI, a lot of advanced AI, to be able to identify our research gap and objective. So please note that researcher must drill down from broader societal issue to specific measurable knowledge defects. So you must be able to, your research problem must be specific. Note that down. Your research problem must be specific. Not that I want to address the healthcare access. No, ow, that's the problem. Now let's move on to something called topic to hypothesis. So I'm going to be teaching you what they call research workflow. And this is a very exciting section. How do you move from broader topic to hypothesis? Now, the first thing you need to write down, if you're writing down, is that identify your general area of interest. For example, I'm an AI engineer. Let's say that my general area of interest is AI in education. So by the time you identify your general area of interest, now, if you want to use any AI tools, the first thing you can also do, I will show you in the later part, you can customize it. If you are a data scientist, you can inform the AI that you are a data scientist such that everything, the entire capability of that specific AI begins to configure to what you are using it for in specific terms. So we're starting with broader topic. Now from your broader topic, you now need to identify the research gap. Don't forget what I'm teaching is workflow from topic to hypothesis. Your research gap, what is currently unknown in your field? And that is very important. I'm interested in AI in education. Then I need to identify my research gap. And a typical example is the efficacy of AI tutor for African students, for ESL students in Africa. Let's say that's my research gap. Don't forget that I've moved from the general, broader topic from broader topic, I identify my research gap. Then the second thing is my problem statement. And it's very important. Once you have identified your research gap, the next question is, what is my problem statement? And please, your problem statement must not be vague. It must not be like a textbook. No. Your problem statement must be specific. Now, when I move from research gap to my problem statement, the next question is, under problem statement, I can say, what does problem statement mean? The specific issue that needs resolution. So when you get to the problem statement, on that problem statement, what the problem statement is primarily all about is what are the specific things that need revolution or that needs solution. And e.g., the dropout rate are higher due to lack of personalized, might be my problem statement. What is personalized support? It means that the way you respond to teaching and the way B responds to teaching might be different. So how can we make AI such that it personalized learning for specific people, such that for A, for B, for C, for D is going to be specific? Then, don't forget, I start with broader topic, then to research gap, then to problem statement, then the fourth one is your research question. You get your research question from your problem statement. Now, what we means the core query you want to investigate. For example, how does AI tutoring impact the reading comprehension? You see? Research question. Then from your research question, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to get your hypothesis. And what is hypothesis? Hypotheses are predictive statements. Please don't forget that. Hypotheses are predictive statements. What does that mean? For example, AI tutoring significantly increased test score by 15%. That is an hypothesis. And the core purpose of my research now, I've moved from broader to hypothesis, is to prove that this hypothesis is right. And please understand this research workflow, because everything you are using AI for, I've taught a couple of students where I saw them using AI in a way that is not right. When you understand these fundamentals, the way you use AI, you will use it as an expert. Now, let's move to the third section. You're welcome to the fourth section. And the fourth section is literature review and gaps identification. You see, a lot of students normally have issue with literature review, because you have vast amount of paper to review. And how do you identify gaps in your literature? And don't forget, the purpose of literature review is to be able to stand on the shoulder of the giant to see what they missed. And this is a quote from Newton in 1685, when Newton said that he's standing on the shoulder of the giant. So literature review is that you look into the past. Look at what amazing scholar has done in the time past, and you study their work, such that you know what has been done in the past and what is obtainable in the future. In geology, we normally say the present, or the present is a key to the past. The past is very important, and that's why we are doing literature review. Please understand. This is a mistake that a couple of people normally make. Literature review is not a book summary. When you are doing summary, maybe you want to summarize a textbook. That's not literature review. The purpose of literature review is that you are looking into a vast amount of literature and you are identifying gaps from there, such that you will know the specific area you should focus on. Please understand that literature review is a critical synthesis designed to justify your research question. Don't forget, when I was teaching you research workflow, we talked about research questions. So, the purpose of your literature review is to justify your research question. And guys, I'm going to be teaching briefly on what I call literature review workflow. Pay attention here. Literature review workflow. And I'm going to be telling you the 4 key components that has helped me in my research. The first one is discovered. What does that mean? It means that you have to identify keywords, Boolean search, and there's something called map foundation paper. What are the foundation paper that are critical for your research? These are things you will be able to discover. So these are things you'll be able to do during literature review phases. The first thing is that discover the specific paper. And of course, AI has made this work easier. In the practical part, we are going to be looking at how we can use AI for this demonstration. The second one is screen. Please note, guys, that it's not all paper that is available on that topic that is essential to you understanding your research questions. So you have to screen. You have to apply something called inclusive and exclusive criteria. And under this section, I'm going to be deploying something called Gemini AI Pro and a specific feature under it called Deep Research. And under Deep Research, we're going to see how this advanced AI model was able to do inclusive and exclusive criterion for us. And please understand that you are also going to review abstract for street relevant. So after you screen your paper, you're going to screen it into two parts. The one that is important, relevant, and the one that is irrelevant. And under the relevant part, you are going to be reading the abstract. And please note, we have a lot of amazing AI. For example, Manos. Manos actually can do this for you. It can help you summarize. It can help you rank paper that is going to be important for your work. And the third is synthesizing. What is synthesizing? Extract data. Build a conceptual framework. Your concept. You want to build the framework. What is the specific framework? And please note, you don't have to start from the ground. AI can actually help you to build a conceptual framework. And the last but not the least is expose. Draft the narrative that specifically highlight the identified research gap. And please understand that there is a difference between systematic literature review and traditional literature review. What is systematic? Systematic use highly rigid replicable protocol to find all common relevant literature that is specific to you. But the traditional means is what we are doing in time points. But we are still going to move on by the time we get to the practical section to see how we can use AI for this purpose. Please note that AI actually supercharge your research workflow. Then we are moving to an amazing section, guys. Identifying research gaps. Somebody is thinking, how do I identify my research gaps? Maybe you're standing in the front of an external supervisor during your thesis defense, and they're asking you, what is your research gaps? Please understand, as you review literature, the most important thing to review, that can be gotten from a literature review is your research gap. So guys, I'm going to be giving you an amazing workflow of how to identify your research gaps. And we have types of gaps anyway. There's what we call conceptual. Conceptual is 35%. What we mean by conceptual, you can identify your gaps by doing conceptual review. That means the theory. You can review the theory to see the one that is outdated. You remember in science, especially in chemistry, we talk about the Dalton's atomic theory. This is a theory that has been outdated. And somebody know that, it's outdated. From the outdated, we do further research and we're able to come up with modified Dalton's atomic theory. These are ways of identifying. Then we have what we call methodological literature gaps. What does that mean? It means that limitation in how past study were conducted. Let's assume that the past study that was conducted in that specific field was conducted in a laboratory setting. That is a limitation, because that which is conducted in a laboratory or in a university might not be replicable in a field experiment. That is a gap. So you might want to move from an experimenter to field study. Then there's something called conceptual. What does that mean? It means that, for example, if you are using a machine learning model there are some existing machine learning model that is applicable to that maybe an existing literature applied. You might want to say that, oh, no, I'm not going to work with this. I want to work with the advanced model. I want to build a model that leverage on the limitation of the existing model. And the last but not the least, guys, is empirical literature, empirical research gap. There are some findings that are contradictory as you review literature. They are contradictory. You might want to, okay, that is actually a gap. If you have two literature that are contradictory, from those two literature, you have identified gaps. Your own gaps might be bridging. Can you see that? You're bridging the gaps between those two contradictory literature, and that is your research gap. Now, guys, please understand that a gap is something that people have not done before. Or they have done it, but the way they have done it is already ancient, and you want to build a modern framework for that. Oh, guys, welcome to section 5, where we are going to be talking about AI-powered literature discovery. And here, we are going to be moving between basic keywords. For example, when you want to use Google for research, it's not really effective because it's generic. Now, I'm going to be giving you an overview of different AI we can use for different parts. And in the practical section, we're going to be having an amazing section together, guys, where we are going to be moving towards different AI. And I believe that at the end of this section, you are going to love it. Now, there's something called Elite AI. I'm going to be explaining something. What does this AI does? Please note, if you're writing, write down. What does this AI does? What is the best use case? And what is the advantage? The first one we're going to be considering is eliteai.com. And Elite AI, what it does is that it uses AI to analyze millions of data, and it can extract structured data. Then the best use case is that we use it to create rapid literature metrics. You ask a question, he extracts the methodology, the participants, and the result, the outcome into a table. That is what it does. And what is the advantage of Elite AI? Actually, the advantage of Elite AI is that it drastically reduces the time you spend in screening abstract for specific empirical data. Now, please note, when you're just starting your research, you don't have abstract. What you have is summary. At the end of your research, you have abstract, because somebody should be able to read through your abstract and he should know the specific result you got in. He should be able to know everything about your research just by reading your abstract. Now we have something called an AI called Consensus. Please note that what Consensus does is that Consensus acts as an AI search engine, strictly for scientific research. And the best use case of Consensus is that it answers a yes or no research question by aggregating the consensus of the top paper. For example, you have a question you want to ask, you put it on Consensus, and Consensus do a kind of image top paper that agrees with you. Just like when we are doing census. Oh, what does census shows? Census shows the number of the number of population in a country. And that's what Consensus does. What is the advantage of Consensus? Consensus shows where literature agrees, where they disagree, and where they clash together on a topic, so that you will know where you can begin your work with. Then, we are going to be moving to another amazing section, guys, is what we call knowledge mapping. Knowledge mapping. And under knowledge mapping, we are going to be doing something called virtual discovery. And what does that mean? It means that enter one seed paper. And guys, I'm going to be using an amazing AI tools for you in the practical section. It's called Google Notebook LM. And under Google Notebook LM, we're going to see how we use Google Notebook LM for what we call knowledge mapping, such that whether you're writing a research or you're working for, you are an early professional, Notebook LM is going to help you. You are going to enjoy it. Now, please note that under this, Notebook LM will actually synthesize. In fact, it's going to show you such that you can even view your research paper in audio form. So we are going to get that in a short while. So guys, we are in section number 6. And under section number 6, we are going to be talking about research ethics and academic integrity. Please note, as more and more we use AI, and the purpose of iResearch Fellowship Program actually is to teach people the ethical means of using AI. And this is what you are going to experience under this iResearch Corporate Social Responsibility Program. Let's talk about research ethics and academic integrity. Please understand that AI accelerates research, but AI also accelerates the ability to commit academic fraud, both intentionally and accidentally. And guys, I'm going to be showing us some framework that is going to help you such that you are going to use AI to supercharge your research, and at the same time you are going to stick with research ethics. Let's go. Now, we have 3 pillars of responsible AI usage. What do I call it? 3 pillars of responsible AI usage. And the first one is transparency. Transparency. Fully disclose which AI tools were used, how they were prompted, and for what specific stage of the research problem, of the research process you use it for. You have to be transparent. Data privacy. Please note, you don't upload sensitive. You don't upload sensitive or public or subject. You don't upload sensitive data to AI. But guys, there is a way we go about it, and I'm going to be showing you in the practical section how you can actually upload sensitive data to AI, and the AI will not use that data to train it. There is a way of doing that. We call it temporal chart. And a lot of people in Africa don't use that features. I'm going to be teaching you how to use those features such that you can also use it to enhance the data privacy control, and the AI will not use your data. And please note that as a researcher, you are 100% responsible for AI hallucination. And we have a lot of amazing workflow that is currently being developed by Manos and Google AI Studio, such that the rate of hallucination is almost 0. And I'm going to be showing us in the practical part. Please, guys, understand that any significant AI assistance must be transparently acknowledged. AI is a tool. It's a tool to help you, to complement you, not to replace you. And AI is a tool to aid human decision, not a replacement for human judgment. Authorship requires accountability that machine cannot provide. And this is a report for global reporting standards for AI disclosure in research. What they are telling you is not to use, they are not discouraging you from using AI. They just want you to use it responsibly. And that is what, guys, we are going to be showing us in our practical section. I'm excited about the practical section. I don't know if you are excited. Then, guys, we are in section 7. And under section 7, we are going to be doing a brief introduction into AI model. And we are going to be, please note that not all AI are created equally. You must choose the right tools for the right tasks. For example, there are some AI that are good in writings. There are some AI that are good in data analysis. And there are some AI that are good in literature searching. Now, we have ChatGPT is very good in advanced writing. We have Gemini. We're going to be seeing that in the practical section. We're going to, please pay attention to the AI. Pay attention to the workflow. I know that after today's class, after this section, you are going to fall in love with AI. And you're going to see how it supercharges your research. Welcome to section 8. Under section 8, we are going to be talking about prompting engineering for researcher. Please understand that the quality of your outcome depends primarily on the quality of your prompt. So in this section, I'm going to be teaching you how to write a standard prompt. And the framework, I'm going to be giving you an exciting framework, guys. You're going to love it. The framework that I use, and people in iResearch Fellowship are fellow all over the world. What they use is what we call the Create Prompt Framework. Please understand that C stands for contests. For example, I want to use an amazing framework for you so that you understand it very well. The context, look at the context. Act as an expert postdoctoral research in African agricultural economies. That is the context you have provided. Now let's move to the second one. Don't forget create. Context, then R stands for request. Analyze the provided transcript. Can you see that? Can you see that? Then the third one is explanation. Let's take it together. Act as an expert postdoctoral researcher in African agricultural economies. Analyze the provided transcript to identify barrier to adopting drone technology. Now, what I want you to do for me in the comment section at the end of this create prompt framework, I want you to use this prompt framework to create your own and send it to the comment section. I'm going to be reading it live. Please follow the instruction. Then we talk about context, we talk about request, we talk about explanation. Then the fourth one is audience. What specific audience are you looking at? The output is for a peer-reviewed academic journal. Peer review. A, audience. And the penultimate one, that is our T. T stands for tone. Please note that anytime you are using AI, your tone is very important. If you are using it for business, you have to set the tone such that you create a business tone. If you are using it for academics, you have to use academic tones. For example, maintain an objective, formal, and analytical tone. That is your tone. Then there's something called extra. For example, if you have extra thing you want to do, you can say format the output as a markdown table with column for thing, quote, and analyze. This is what we call the create framework. Please note, C stands for context. R stands for request. E stands for explanation. A stands for audience. T stands for tones. And E stands for extra. I hope you guys are getting it. So guys, we are gradually moving ahead to our practical workshop. And under this practical workshop, we want to see how we can apply the theory to the practical world. Now, please note that your 3-step workshop task is use create framework to prompt Clown. We're going to be using Clown, C-L-A-U-D-E, and ChatGPT to refine your broader interest into 2 specific problem questions. You can use AI also you can use Consensus actually for gaps analysis and to formulate your research questions. Now, these are assignments I'm going to be giving you. What is the assignment? Go, what you have learned thus far, use it to get a broader topic, a broader area of interest. Follow the research framework. Get the problem, the research gap, the problem. From problem, formulate your research question. And from your research question, formulate what we call your research hypothesis. And please note that African next research breakthrough starts with your question. And this is the section I'm going to be closing the theoretical part. And guys, I'm excited because we are going to the practical part. And see you in the second section. Please don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel so that you can get notification for our video. We're going to be having a lot of amazing video on how to use AI for research, for music production, for a lot of amazing things. Subscribe, guys. See you in the second section. Thank you.